Hello everyone, and a really warm welcome to another courageous conversation. My name is Pollyanna Darling and I look after community engagement and strategy for Tree Sisters, and I'm really excited to be talking to the lovely NeLi Martin today. And while we wait for NeLi to join us, I'm just going to read you her bio so you know a little bit more about her. I am a tree sister and psychologist, yoga, meditation and dance teacher living in Noosa, Queensland, Australia. When I was a kid growing up on a farm, I used to spend time in the bush, playing out dramas on the rocks, creating dens and places to just be. I felt like I belonged to the land I inhabited. Now I offer walking retreats in silence at Noosa National Park for me and others to plug back in and remember our connection and belonging to all life. So I apologise if it's a little windy my end. My internet, where I usually work from, decided not to work this morning, so I've dashed out to the local park and I'm making do with what works here. So hopefully, NeLi, I can see that you're watching. If you can make a request to join, then I can bring you on camera. And in the meantime, these courageous conversations are really about celebrating the wisdom and the courage of women, and especially women in the Tree Sisters network. And it's quite a thing to be willing to come on camera on a Facebook page that has a following of 250,000. All right, NeLi can't see how to join. Let me just see if I can do it. Apologies for the finger over the lens. Okay, you're adding, NeLi, so hopefully. Hi, Marianne. Hi, Yi. Hi, Crystal. And Eliana. Hello. It's lovely to have everybody here watching. So, it's connecting. We should very shortly have NeLi. Hello, you're upside down.
Oh, I don't know. I'll just do that.
There we go. Yay!
Oh, yay! Sorry
It's
about
always
the technical.
That's all right. It's always such a thrill when this actually works. That's the other thing I was going to say is not only is it pretty daring to come on a page that has 250,000 followers, but it's also very daring to be willing to do live technology where all manner of things can and often do go wrong.
Yes. But here we are.
Yes, here we are. So it would be really lovely if you could begin by sharing with us why you're a tree sister.
Yeah, thanks, Pollyanna. Why I'm a tree sister? Well, when I came across the Tree Sisters about a year or so ago, I just, like, everything in my body just went, yes. Like, you are doing so many wonderful things in the world and wonderful things that I want to be a part of. Like, you know, responding to climate change with a yes rather than, you know, a no, like actually doing something proactive and positive that makes the difference. And, you know, I've done my fair share of protesting in my earlier years. And apart from like burning me out, I don't know that it was that effective. Although, you know, I think the American nuclear bases did leave Greenham Common. However, there it feels like there's a way to like affect change that has the movement come from love and care, and have the movement come from doing something proactive rather than protesting about what we don't want. And of course, we still need to do that. We still need to say what's not okay, but actually to take action that's proactive and positive is wonderful. And to see, like, and Claire Dubois is so elegant with the way that she articulates how that's intimately linked to how we are in our inner journey. And that when we come from, you know, when we come from a place of love and care and connectedness and have that willingness to, you know, embody and feel, then, you know, the whole way that we do action to take care of the planet, to take care of each other, is going to be different. It's going to feel different from the inside. It's going to support us. So, you know, I just love it. I think it's like so what the world needs.
And so if you could speak a little bit more to the difference in how that feels in you, like the difference between how it felt to be fighting against and how it feels to be creating from care and love, like what is that difference for you?
Well, it's the difference that gives me a sense of hope and possibility. It's yeah, and the change in my own heart is that I'm way more open, and I feel buoyant in my life, and more often in the realm of possibility, as opposed to just feeling like everything's defeatist and defeated. Mm.
Yeah, cool. So what do you think being a tree sister has given you?
Oh, so many things. Like a platform, I guess there's a platform, and in terms of the sisterhood, particularly the inner journey. So um, that's what I love on a personal level, that we have a process that brings us together, that we have a way to articulate some of the deepest pain that we feel about this the wider state of affairs with the world, but really to share what that's like as a how it touches our hearts, and as well as our minds and our bodies, and to and to be uh, a place, or a safe place where that can be transformed into the positive action, and that everybody is in there with the same intention. So I can feel lonely, um, outrage, or I can even feel some um, camaraderie with other groups in my outrage. But if I don't feel like that can change on an inner level, then I don't feel like I can take effective action. Mm.
Yeah, that's actually I think that's a really good point about lonely outrage, because I know that if I if I'm disconnected to the sisterhood, then that sense of isolation in how bad it is can be incredibly crippling. And
Mm.
but then if I'm back in connection with everybody and all, especially in the sisterhood in the inner journey, when I'm in connection with all those people and all of that array of wisdom that's in there, and
Mm.
the sense of being held and of not being alone, it does light my heart back up in ways that, then I'm going to pick myself up off the floor and go,
Mm.
okay, as Bob Brown says, don't get angry, get active. That's his motto, and he's a very gentle human being who's done a lot in Australia in terms of caring for our environment. So what if there was a message that you would like to share with other women about Tree Sisters' mission, what would that be?
A message. Oh, just join in, and enjoy and revel, contribute, and feel how it can contribute to you. Like, the connection and the belonging is wonderful, and the care that everybody that I feel from everybody is just beautiful. And um, I don't know, like, it's like if you feel like there's something missing in this way in your life, then the Tree Sisters can be the like a sort of a link back into that care and connection, as well as the action. It's just yeah, it's exquisite in that it's like it's not just leaving the outrage as outrage. It's turning that into action, but in a loving way. And so holding us all in that way of like the outrage has to change, has to be alchemized back to love before we can take effective action, if we actually want to care for the planet.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that really strongly while you're speaking, that sense of of care. And you know, what we have kind of noticed through the inner journey that we've been running this group now for nearly a year. We've all been co-creating that space and supporting one another, and that care does actually translate into action. So the who feel women who feel cared about and loved and supported are willing to go out and take action, where you and I both know that if we don't feel loved and cared and supported about, we're just going to lie down on the kitchen floor and cry, and crying is completely valid, but you might never get up.
Yeah.
It feels like it's the care that helps to transmute that into care for planet and care for the future. So as this is a courageous conversation, do you want to speak a little to what courage means for you and how that's manifested in your life?
That's a funny question. What courage means? I always feel like I'm like at the edge of my courage. Like that I'm doing things that are courageous, and I have this strange relationship with fear. Like I'll often hold back on doing things, and then all of a sudden just leap forward. And sometimes that's not always in my best interest to do it like that. And so courage. Well, someone once said to me, she was my hairdresser actually. She said she learned something as a child, which was courage is fear walking. And so sometimes it feels like the fear should be leaping, um, or that you need something big and grand to be courageous, like the sort of the roar of a lion or something like that. Uh, but sometimes courage is also just the thing that is keeping on going, and getting up in the morning and turning towards the flower and seeing the beauty in that, and seeing that it's a reflection of me, seeing that it's a reflection of everybody, and even people who might annoy me or whose views I might not agree with. Maybe I can also see the beauty in them. So those small steps also sort of counter the fear, or have the fear continue to walk. Um, and sometimes leaping is required too. So, um, leaping, just moving to the other side of the world, and leaving things that were more or less working but not completely right for me. I guess those are the things that I feel like I've done in my life, and sometimes they work out really well, and sometimes they're still, like, life is just one of those things. It is a continual growth process for me anyway. It's like there's no looking back or going back. There's only going forwards. Like, you got to be riding at the front of the train, looking for the possibilities, as opposed to riding at the back going, oh, I should have done this, or why didn't I do that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so what do you feel then about the kind of courage that it takes to change the world? Because obviously, we're in this sort of situation in the world where change is necessary, at least for human survival anyway, and a whole lot of other species that are relying on our changes. So, how do you feel, you can access the courage that's needed for that? And is that a different kind of courage, do you think, to the kind where you are looking at the flower and remembering that it's you, or is it the same sort?
It's sort of the same sort, because often the courage to stand for the trees or stand for the planet, um, that courage, um, I don't know, for me, it takes in the inner journey process, the reveal, the recognition that we're, intimately interconnected, and that we're not actually separate. And, there's, to know that, on a day to day, moment to moment basis, is the is the place that's that recognition is needed before the change can be anything but self-interest. I don't know if that makes sense. So like, if I was just thinking that I needed to like look after myself through climate change, I'd probably just, go to the wilds or go with somebody who knew how to look after themselves, or become a very good survivalist, like in the wilds. But that who knows whether that would actually work or not. But that but that would be like a sort of self-interested way to like try and survive climate change. Become completely self-sufficient and not like need the rest of the world. But that can't be the answer for all of us, and so therefore it can't be the answer. So I don't know, but I think it does need that the recognition of the interconnectedness, and that the way that we are on the inside and the way that we relate to one another is the same as the way that we relate to the trees and we relate to the planet. And so the way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything.
Yeah.
So if we extend the care to ourselves, if we extend the care to those close to us, if we extend the care to our our local environment, the trees that are close to us, then it can only go on from there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, I just sort of feel like that we need all of it together, and the courage to actually not have such a self-interest. Like, it's like, well, I may not, well, I won't, everybody's going to die. I won't survive, but whether whether human life or life at all continues on this planet, if I can have an impact or a say about that, then this is the impact and the say that I'd like to have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. And you're making me think about the fact that it does actually take courage to take care of ourselves, because especially if we're in a habit of not taking care of ourselves, or rushing forward with things, or taking action from a place of empty on the inside, to break those patterns of behavior, even in relation to ourselves, takes courage, because it's going to be different then. And then to break patterns of behavior in relation to other people also takes courage. And like everything that it feels like everything that we need to do takes courage. It takes courage for me to say, I will actually stop work and go and lie down because I'm tired, or I will sit with this trigger that this person has brought up for me that makes me want to run screaming for the hills, and I will own it instead of pushing it back at them, and see where we get to. And I will speak up in this meeting, on behalf of life or my children or whatever. Like, even those tiny actions that we take daily take a level of courage to break out of patterns. And I know that you know a fair bit about this because you're a psychologist, and I wonder if you wanted to speak to it a little more deeply.
About breaking patterns?
Yeah, and the courage that you need to do that.
Yeah, totally, because the patterns are, mostly set in when we're younger, and often from our, our early environment, our conditioning that's, set up by the attachment styles of our caregivers, and that makes a sort of sense of who we are in the world, and therefore what's possible for us. So, to break patterns of behavior mean sort of almost breaking free of the sense of who I am, or at least the sense of who I have taken myself to be in the world. And, the reason that people develop difficult patterns, or patterns that aren't caring, is because it's better to be anyone, like to have a difficult sense of yourself rather than have no sense of yourself. So that confrontation of the like who I've taken myself to be sort of isn't working for me. Like that's like right at the core, or the essence of many spiritual paths. And so with the work in psychology, you don't have to go quite to the complete unraveling of self, um, but you need to sort of touch in there to be able to, you know, develop a different sense of self. And so that's profoundly, like, you know, if you call it the ego, that's profoundly, you know, scary. It's like the death of the ego. It's not a physical death, but it feels like that because that's everything that we've taken ourselves to be and everything that we protect. And, you know, where all of the sort of self-interest comes from. So it needs a profound surrender, like, which, you know, that's been the most difficult thing in my life, I have to say. It's like, what, really? Like, let go of everything and, you know, leap. Yeah, like, and, you
Yeah.
know, that's still my practice, I have to say. I let go and then, you know, it
Yeah.
rebuilds itself and then you have to let go again and then it rebuilds itself, you know.
Yeah.
It's,
And I guess that's where sisterhood and community is so important, because if you know, if we are going to let go and surrender the ideas that we have about ourselves and even the ideas that we have about how the world is and how we are living and how we're relating to each other, to surrender into that with no support feels like leaping into the abyss. But to surrender into that in sisterhood, in community, and in community and sisterhood that you know is supportive and encouraging, feels a little bit like I nearly died about 10 years ago, and I had a near-death experience, and part of that was falling back into this embrace, this incredibly gentle, loving embrace. And I think that's what the sisterhood and community that we are building within Tree Sisters can be for us, is that, like, okay, I am going to surrender and let go, and I will land in this place where there are arms holding and there's support and there's encouragement, and, you know, I'm not just going to keep falling. I'm going to be caught. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that feels really beautiful for you to have kind of have raised that sense of surrender, and then if we couple that with sisterhood, is there anything that you would like to say about surrender and support, and, you know, in your experience, in your work, or even in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, so I, you know, teach meditation in the Buddhist tradition, and we would say, you know, there's a raft that helps you get to the other shore, and the raft is the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and so the Sangha is, you know, essentially the sisterhood or the people around you who support. And the reason, and, you know, the teachings of the Buddha, those things, the reason those things are important is because, you know, like, it's a scary traverse to the other side of the river where, you know, that's the sort of surrender place, and there's always, and we need support. Basically, we don't those three jewels are the support, because otherwise, you know, the Buddha made it on his own sort of thing, but there's very few and far between to, you know, individual people make it on their own. So that's why, you know, there's a Sangha, that's why there is a sisterhood. You know, these, um, we need these supports. We need, and, you know, and I use them like that too. Like, if I feel like I'm falling out of love or trust with the universe, like, and I feel my separation keenly, and usually that's because I feel some sort of angst or suffering in my life, then I, you know, like, I will listen to one of my Dharma teachers, or I will listen to something from Claire, and it's like, it's the reminder of, you know, there's this way to see things, and there's this, or, yeah, there's this way to look, and there's this way to feel, and there's this way to orientate, there's this way to have a perspective. and then if that may just be enough, or I'm sort of restored in some way, like I'm restored back into the interconnectedness of everything. Um, and sometimes I would post on the inner journey, or I would connect with friends, and I would go through, this is what's happening, this is what's hard. And so, yeah, it's, I don't know, like it is, the surrender is to the imperfection, I guess, of myself and like life and everything else. And
Yeah.
and I need the reflection of others and other wise beings, often. So
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, and I really love that visual of this, of the sisterhood can be the raft to get us across the river. That's It's such a, because we have a big river to cross, and as humanity and moving forward, we've got a very big river to cross, and that, to ask how am I going to cross that on my own is sort of, for me it's completely overwhelming and a little bit nightmarish. But to be able to cross that river with others, and all join together and creating the raft together feels very soothing and empowering. It kind of creates this rising up within me. I'm just conscious of the time. So we know that it's going to take all of us to create the change that, the world is calling for. Do you have a sort of a personal message for anyone who is thinking about joining Tree Sisters that is uniquely yours, that you would like to share?
I don't know, just do it. That's not very original. Someone else did that. I would say,
I'm seeing a tick. Yeah.
yeah, just do it. And it's like something about the encouragement of the network. There's one of my Dharma teachers just said that to me once. Whatever you do, encourage the network, because there is a sense of, again, it's a Dharma image, the Indra's net, which is the sort of a representation for the interconnectedness of all things. And when we know ourselves as part of that net, when we feel ourselves woven in, then then all everything, anything, all things are possible, including the restoration and the the care that's needed for our planet to thrive and survive. So, and for ourselves as humans, and if we don't make it, we don't make it. But I'd like to really be part of us having a go at making it. And if you're thinking about what can you do? This is what you can do. You can feel yourself as part of the net. You can feel yourself woven in, and that may be enough if we all did that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you. And for anybody listening, if you would like to step in and support the trees, please do click the link that's in the description of this video, and which is actually treesisters.org/donate. And do come and join us in the net of the inner journey. And we will be having another courageous conversation next Wednesday with Samiel. We'll have a special guest with her. And in the meantime, thank you so much, NeLi. Thank you very much for being brave and having the courage to come on and speaking from your heart and sharing your wisdom. It's been really enjoyable. Thank you.
Thanks, Pollyanna. It's been so lovely to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.